Go to webinar.
Okay, now everybody can join from the backstage to the webinar. Good morning, good evening, hello world. We are reviving. Details is reviving. So thanks guys. My name is Jenny Chen. I'm pretty sure you guys already met me for many webinars in the past, and we really want to pivot from webinar to more engaging hybrid event in the future. And also want to give people a better virtual experience as well, because webinar, is boring. I just admit to that. Not always, the content can be exciting. So this is why we're hosting this more engaging format, and hopefully people can have some one-on-one experience. Three Hills have 3 missions, and one of the important missions is to network. And how can we continue to achieve that goal with all kinds of diseases going on? I'm pretty sure there are going to be more. I'm sorry to say that. So we're going to have to just move on and create a new, more efficient and effective networking format. So this is one of them. So first, I'm going to have our community managers to present themselves. Just tell us a little bit about who they are and what they're doing and why they joined this community. And if they want to meet up, do they have some plans and stuff? And obviously you can ask questions or chat and tell us who you are. And this, yes, this is recorded, thank God. So we will post this all over the internet as well in the future. After the introductions, we have a scheduled booth time. So if you want to meet community managers at your local booth, you can walk our expo floor and you can check it out. You can also chat in the lobby where people are not in different sessions throughout the day. You don't just have to be chatting, in this hour or later afternoon session. So there are a lot of ways to play around. Another important thing is fill your profile for Zoom event. This is almost like a business card for yourself, if not better. People can connect you right away on LinkedIn or any other social media, and they can chat with you directly. And I think by March, we will have one-on-one scheduling capability using Zoom. So it just cuts down a lot of middle tools and middle people. So I'm just keep blabbing on now. I'm going to introduce Zolt. I think you're the first person who is presenting your community or yourself. And then, I'm just going to let the rest of you guys just, move, just use the schedule and then keep going.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. I shared my presentation. I hope you can see. So my name is Joel, and I'm committed for 3D printing and especially its application in the health sector. I feel in several positions in several organizations. Naturally, the closest to my heart is 3D Hills that I joined 5 years ago. I am a director of international affairs at MediCluster and also the leader of the 3D printing in the health sector working group. I am also vice president of the Hungarian Additive Technology Association. And also I'm a practitioner as the CEO of Premed. Premed is an additive manufacturing focused medical device producer. We have ISO 9000 and 13,485 certifications. Our core activity is the production of person-specific implants, primarily craniomaxillofacial implants, surgical tools, dental frameworks, and also started to deal with the production of veterinary implants. We put a high emphasis on research and development. We cover practically all elements of the production, starting from design, 3D printing, the procedure itself, heat and surface treatment, and also we carry out both tests and simulations that you can see here. During the pandemic, we started to produce crisis relevant products that you can see on the right side. Well, concerning our activity related to 3D Hills, I have organized or contributed to the organization of several different events I am very proud of. The experts came primarily from the region, the Central and Eastern European region. And you can see a few interesting products from this region. I was very proud to organize an interview with András Csóka, who contributed or managed the separation of the Bangladesh twins. And what was interesting, he used 3D printing for planning the very challenging operations. We also organized transnational events in the region in the last 2.5 years. And during that time, we realized that there are very good experts and very good companies in the region. Some of them are already well known, like, for example, Lithos. Others are working on becoming known and successful. And naturally, we are very open to collaborate with within the region, but also with experts and companies outside the region. So we are really open to for collaborations. Thank you very much.
Joe, I think you're next on the calendar here. Joe? Okay, we can, I think he's having some tech issues. He's definitely here. Let's move on to Ben.
Hey everybody, I am Ben Holmes. I am the founder and CEO of Nanocon. We're a company developing a 3D printed regenerative implant for treating some of the biggest problems in sports medicine. I have a quick presentation. I'm just going to introduce the company a little more, and then happy to talk about myself. I am also in the Washington, D.C. area. So if you are in Maryland, Virginia, or D.C., I'd be happy to connect with you and get you more involved in the community. Let's see. All right, so the name of my company is Nanocon. We're developing an implantable device for restoring lost and damaged cartilage in the knee. We're specifically focused on treating a condition which is often referred to as a focal cartilage lesion. The best way to visualize this, if you're not an orthopedic surgeon, is they're basically potholes that form in the cartilage surface of the joint. So the tissue that provides, a low friction surface and also provides sort of like a mechanical cushion for the joint starts to break down over time. And then eventually, as the tissue degrades, these potholes form in the cartilage. And they're an issue because they leave the underlying bone exposed to stresses and forces. The bone itself starts to undergo degenerative changes. And this is the disease known as osteoarthritis. And so at the end of the day, really the challenge that we're looking to address is osteoarthritis. And for a majority of patients in the US and worldwide, this is basically a long road that ends in the total joint replacement. So there's been a real effort clinically to address focal cartilage lesions sooner and much closer to the point of diagnosis. And that means in people that are generally in their 30s, 40s, and even early 50s, not yet at the point of needing a knee replacement, but having debilitating pain and loss of function of their joint. And so that's really where we see, both a synthetic material platform and a 3D printed approach to manufacturing, providing a lot of benefit and basically informing a product we think could have a big impact. We essentially have a synthetic polymer material, which replicates the collagen network in cartilage. And that's important because the material itself has cartilage matched mechanical properties, but it also acts as a really good substrate for cell growth. And then we've combined that material with a 3D printed approach. So unlike other folks in the community, or what a lot of people typically think of as the medical use for 3D printing, we're not doing something patient specific. In our case, this is an opportunity to create a structure which is truly three-dimensional and can actually integrate with the body's environment, which has always been a classic challenge sort of in tissue engineering and scaffold design. So basically, the way this works is you have an implant which has this bioactive material. The material is 3D printed into this three-dimensional porous grid. And then that implant is introduced into the joint space and used to fill in these lesions. And so immediately the implant does provide relief to the patient by mechanically stabilizing the joint. But really the star of the show is that it attracts stem cell populations to migrate up from the bone. And especially when it's immediately implanted, it rapidly captures and absorbs blood, which is carrying those cells. But then over a longer period of time, 4 to 6 months, you do see this really rapid integration of new tissue forming inside this lattice structure. And then over an even longer period of time, those stem cell populations, they interact with the material. The tissue starts to remodel as the material degrades. And what you're eventually left with is just a fully healed natural cartilage. So basically returning that lesion and returning that injury to the same state it was when it was a healthy joint. To talk about the things that we're looking to compete with, because there are existing treatments, there's really three. The first is something called microfracture, which a lot of folks are familiar with, and even some people on the webinar might have experienced. It is currently considered the standard of care, but the challenges with it is it just doesn't work very well in the long term. Patients are typically needing a revision in 1 to 2 years. And then actually there has been published clinical data that, within the last couple of years that shows the microfracture actually accelerates osteoarthritis in patients that have been treated with it. And so now the sports medicine community is really kind of scrambling to look at, what's going to replace microfracture, because there now is this element of, it's not just a minimally invasive treatment that provides some benefit. It's something that's now known to actually cause harm. So the current alternatives are twofold. One is cadaveric allografting, which is basically what it sounds like. It's an organ transplantation, but of cartilage and bone instead of a heart or a kidney. So it basically has the same challenges that organ transplantation does. You have to source that donor tissue from an organ donor, and patients are waiting on average 6 to 12 months to actually receive a graft. So in the US, there's about 20,000 of these grafting procedures done a year in a patient population of about 500,000. So it's really not getting to the people that need it. And in response to that, some of the pharma and device companies have developed these cell therapy products where live cells are cultured or enriched and embedded in some sort of implantable material or device. The big challenge with these is that they haven't really shown better outcomes than allograft, but the workflow is often more difficult for the surgeon, and they can cost up to 6 times as much. So it's a huge burden on the system. It's very difficult to get these to the patient. It hasn't actually really solved the logistical challenges of grafting. And so at the end of the day, while we're very excited about the fact that Nanocon's platform has a better capacity and could regenerate cartilage much more efficiently and effectively for patients, it's a totally synthetic off-the-shelf product. And so what we envision is taking this workflow and this treatment mode, which has really been a very time-consuming, expensive, and almost like a bespoke way to treat patients, and giving surgeons an off-the-shelf product that they can have as needed at the point of care and just pull and use as they want to. And that's going to be much better for surgeons because they'll be able to treat many more people. And that's going to be way better for patients because treatment can be much faster, much more efficient. And we also have the ability to really lower the cost of treatment, and finally have something that sort of unlocks the other long time challenge in this space, which is actually getting these other treatments paid for by various payers, whether they're private or public payers. And so it's just an enormous opportunity. And we feel like through the use of our material and a 3D printed approach, we have something which is very new, very novel, maybe very effective, but also solves these real challenges in terms of how care is delivered. And so to kind of summarize where we are in our progress, we've gone through a number of very rigorous preclinical models, a lot of efficacy and safety testing, and we're currently gearing up for a first-in-human trial. So right now we're planning on starting the process with the clinical site over the summer, and we expect to be enrolling our first patient by the end of the year. We also believe that we've shown, just again, through the enormous efficacy we've seen in our preclinical models, that this is going to work very well, and we're going to be able to move very quickly into larger trials. And we do think the product will be FDA approved and ready to go to market by 2027. So that is me, and that is Nanocon. And then just to kind of summarize and talk a little bit more about myself and the DC community, I'm someone who never thought I would end up in Washington, D.C. doing this. I mean, especially for PMA devices and pharmaceuticals, people always talk about, when are you moving to San Francisco or Boston? No offense to either of those places. I spent a lot of time traveling there. But DC as a medtech community has really grown, I would say, over the last 10 years. And I think one of the reasons why NanoCon continues to operate here is because the resources continue to build, both on the investor base, although I think that there's certainly some work to be done there, but also on the resource side. There's obviously a lot of world-class consultants, both regulatory consultants and reimbursement consultants. I mean, excellent IP attorneys. Basically every major IP attorney has a K Street office. And then also there's other resources as well. We ourselves moved into the Johnson & Johnson J Labs. If you're not familiar, Johnson & Johnson has this network of medical device and pharma incubators. They opened one in Washington, D.C. in late 2021. So we're a resident there. Also, just in general, the biotech entrepreneurial community continues to swell. We remain very involved in George Washington University, which the technology came out of, and continues to be a really leader in university academic entrepreneurship. And there's a lot of other communities that are kind of forming and continue to thrive as well. So if you're in the area, I'd love to meet you. As Jenny said, as the world continues to sort of open up more and more, would love to start having in-person 3D Heals events again, and certainly would love to plug anyone in the area into those other ecosystems that we're involved with. So would love to meet you and would love to be a resource for you.
Thanks, Ben. That's awesome. Very great introduction about your company, yourself, and the area. I love DC. It has a lot of potential for a great community. I'm going to turn to New York, which is obviously a giant city with lots of resources as well. And Joe is here with us.
Great, thank you. You guys can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let me get what I've got to present up. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the New York biotech scene and the advanced manufacturing scene, and how I think we're uniquely positioned to combine those two things here and really leverage a lot of what 3D printing in healthcare is all about. So I think to begin with, people don't always realize this because New York is such a big hub for finance and entertainment and a bunch of other industries also, but we have the highest density of academic medical centers in the whole country, if not the whole world. And they bring in a lot of money for the life sciences, a lot of economic output, a lot of spin outs, and related to that, a lot of kind of adjacent pieces of that infrastructure that serve the life sciences community. And so, it doesn't always feel like New York is this biotech hub, but I think it has always had the potential, and there's been a lot of investment in the last really decade to build this out and better combine it with the other high tech and deep tech ecosystems that have been growing. We've got fertile ground for healthcare innovation between the medical centers and incubators, and I think actually as of earlier this year, this map is a little outdated, and now there's several more locations in the Queens region that have popped up to serve life science companies across the board. I think most notably Opentrons, which falls in this kind of automation, robotics, biomanufacturing space, and really lends a lot of their growth to the 3D printing industry that started up in New York about a decade prior. And I think importantly, we are the birthplace of consumer 3D printing. MakerBot, which really kind of brought it to the mainstream, started in Brooklyn at NYC Resistor and grew here for many, many years. And when they stopped growing here for many, many years, a lot of their engineers went over to places like Opentrons and helped build the life science robotics industry. And so there's a lot of great overlap here. There's a lot of overlap between the hardware side of technology and the hardware needs of the life sciences. And that's really where bioprinting and healthcare 3D printing sits. And so as part of that, there's the kind of parallel initiative from the city and the state to really grow our manufacturing ecosystem again. And I think, this network of hubs that you see on this map really came into their own during the pandemic in New York City when we had the first wave and PPE was in short supply, and really this network of maker spaces, fabrication hubs, and medium and large scale manufacturers kicked into high gear using all kinds of technologies like 3D printing and laser cutting and digital manufacturing across the board to rework and reconfigure a lot of PPE and medical equipment and really save lives. And so this was a big moment for New York City and a big moment for healthcare 3D printing. I think that I was, for better or worse, fortunate to be on the forefront of at Mount Sinai. And so I want to quickly, I think, raise the latest piece of news of interest to, I think, this group here, which is something I had the privilege of being a part of as both a City College alumni and a current employee at Mount Sinai Hospital, which was this investment from the Adams administration and the New York City Economic Development Corporation to build out 2 new accelerator spaces in Manhattan, one at the City College campus and another at one of Mount Sinai's hospital campuses. And both of these are focused on specifically not just biotech, but a lot of med tech and medical device work. And so a clear overlap, I think, with this these parallel streams of digital manufacturing and material science coupled with needs in healthcare and the life sciences. And so this was announced just last September. The spaces are already almost done being constructed, and the goal is within 3 years' time to have most of the space filled with new companies in the space in the city working in life sciences, healthcare, and kind of the related fields. And so I think the point I'm trying to make here is that where biotech and manufacturing meet, like they do in New York, you get unique ventures that are born. EpiBone spun out of New York, Alginate spun out of New York, 3D Bio got a lot of attention last year for some of the printing they were doing in clinical trials, and Biosapien, which is a company I helped co-found, also spun out of New York. They're now in the San Diego area, but I'm still here, so I'd like to think they've still got a little bit of connection to New York. And all this leads to a very vibrant and unique life sciences ecosystem. I think to Ben's point, there's no need to talk about San Francisco or Boston or make comparisons, because we're doing our own thing here in New York, and it's a different thing. And I think it's something that the 3D Heals community has been a part of and should continue to be a part of. And I'm very excited to help grow that ecosystem here. So if you want to connect to learn more, contribute to events, we've been doing all kinds of things throughout the ecosystem with some of the other organizations I'm affiliated with, be it Mount Sinai or Grow Biotech or Nucleate, which is a new initiative focused on nurturing student entrepreneurs. Any of these links will kind of get you in the right direction. I'd be super excited to chat with all of you.
That's awesome, Joe. Very informative presentation. I wouldn't, dismiss the fact that New York is the center of finance, and that's actually a huge engine behind how the biotech, biopharma, medical devices, and any kind of life science companies is really motivated and driven by. So it's really a good position to be in. And, San Francisco used to be, I guess still is a huge biotech center, but I think a lot of cities are learning from that, and there are a lot of resources all over the country. So yeah, I don't know if we're going to be in this dominant position. It will be a competition. I'm here. So next, let's see who's on the calendar. I think Jim. Okay, sorry, Jim. You're next.
Hey there, everyone. Well, very, very impressive presentation so far. I don't have a presentation. I'm kind of newer on the scene, and I'm approaching 3D Heals and the network from sort of a different approach. So I've been in medical devices now for about 16 years. I started with a company called Cook Medical, involved in abdominal and thoracic aortic aneurysms. And I quickly was there for about 8 years. And then I moved on to the cardiac space, and right at the early advent of TAVR, which is delivering a transcatheter valve through the femoral arteries up backwards and deploying those without opening the chest. And so I am approaching 3D Heals in this space from an intimate procedural side, if you will. And so I've been fortunate and blessed enough to work alongside brilliant physicians in the past and be a part of and involved in patient design and selection for in which we use 3D printing to create custom-made devices for patients that didn't otherwise have options. So that's kind of my history. And now I'm with a neuro startup out of the Bay Area. However, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm going to stay away from this East Coast, West Coast rivalry we have going on. But I do notice that there's a lot of investments in Charlotte. I'm plugged into some of the innovation labs through some of the hospital networks, like the Novant system, the Atrium system. And so that's really my focus, is to build those networks. I think we're a little further behind, maybe DC, San Francisco, and New York, but we are catching up quickly as well. There's a deep understanding of fintech here locally, not so much the medical side. And so that's something I'm really trying to promote. And I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of academic centers like Wake Forest Baptist. They're huge on the regenerative medicine and bioprinting side, as well as University of North Carolina and NC State. So some powerhouse firms in North Carolina and some universities I'm connected with directly, more so through the physicians. And so I'm kind of getting into the labs that way and trying to build a network so we can promote all the great stuff you guys are doing. So that's really it in a nutshell for me, Jenny.
Okay, sorry, I look weird because I was actually managing 2 computers. Thanks, Jim. I heard every single word you said. Great presentation. And I really look forward to build this community. The reason I was playing was 2 different computers because I'm supposed to be at my booth. So I have a second computer doing my booth. I'm actually, I'm there, but I'm actually here as well. I think next is going to be Raphael. I think he's saying if he's still here, but if not, Raphael, are you still there? Okay. Well, we're going to go with Hannah because she is in the middle of the night, even though she's representing Munich, but she actually is on vacation. So thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us.
No worries. I hope you can see my screen, and I want to see that you don't see yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm just gonna make this very quick and short. So a little bit about me. So I'm Hannah. I got into 3D printing in healthcare, I think in 2015 when I started my PhD on anatomical modeling. Based on the result of these research topics, I founded Animo, which is a small company focusing on generic configurable anatomical models, which can mimic any kind of pathology and can be used for simulate surgical simulations. We focus a lot on soft tissue applications, so hearts, vessels, any kind of skin. So this is where our space kind of where we're developing new cool stuff. But let's talk a bit more about 3D Heals in Munich. So I've been managing this community since I think 6 years now. And I want to show you a little bit what we did in the past and maybe discuss a bit about what we could potentially do in the future. So what we have done in Munich is we had a lot of like happy hours. So just to really meet, and obviously those were in person, as you see, this is before the pandemic. We were having them everywhere, like in beer garden, bars, or we were visiting local small startups to kind of see, give them some visibility, kind of, because a lot of people are interested obviously in seeing these startups. One of the startups actually now is not a startup anymore. It's kind of big. It had an exit. So that's very cool. And the other thing we had is obviously supporting or having our own mini symposiums in person and online, where we had like experts talking. We met for pizza after and discussed with them directly, or the community, just getting everybody together. This might also be something to do in the future, more online or hybrid kind of version, because that also allows like a bit more global approach, and that we can kind of connect everybody together, and also with the maybe focus more on a topic overall in 3D Heals community, but also have some nice speakers from not just Munich, but Germany, Europe, the area in general, like everybody who's close and doesn't have their own community manager, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, that's actually also where I'm finishing. So I just created yesterday a brand new LinkedIn group, because I think maybe we could organize about like new in-person events, if you want that, or if any other ideas around in the future. So there's an idea. So it's a very small group yet. So I'm going to invite everybody who already joined the events now. But if you want to join, feel free to look us up on LinkedIn. And if you are a potential speaker in the area, you don't know which other community you want to go to, come and contact me, talk to me. We're also always looking for host locations, so like startups we can visit. If you have any other rooms where you want to host a cool symposium, same goes for sponsors and definitely speakers, and just in general network. If you want to join, feel free to reach out.
Awesome, thank you, Hannah. By the way, guys, I know like there are not many people joining, but I think this video will be broadcasted to a wider audience. Is you can modify your Zoom event profile, so it has a picture. You can put your LinkedIn link there. you can put your other things, titles in there. So it really helps you to network during the event. Also, my best days, some of my best days, obviously I have other things, but some of my best days in my life is before the pandemic, where I traveled to all these different cities and meet up with the community managers. I met up with Hannah in Munich, and not only was I able to meet the 3D printing community there, I was also able to check out castles. It's a really fun world to be in and learning the same time. So it's almost like the Lonely Planet experience, but the 3D printing version. So I really had a great time. So, you guys should think about, arrange some travels to all the cities to meet people and enjoy local culture. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our last speaker, I believe, is Raphael from Detroit.
Good morning. Apologies for the slight delay. And this is probably going to be the most informal of the talks, just and highlighted by the fact that as a graduate student, I was asked to TA last minute, which is kind of why I'm kind of running around this morning. But good to meet you all. My name is Rafael Ramos. I'm currently a graduate student in the MD PhD program out of Wayne State University in the great city of Detroit. And I've been working with Jenny over the past couple of years to sort of try to build a network for the Midwest and for Michigan specifically for 3D Heals. Michigan is kind of a unique environment given the fact that the 3 largest universities are obviously state universities, and there's a lot of talent to potentially tap into. Detroit obviously also has a really solid history in terms of biomedical and particularly mechanical device designs. It's always very empowering to sort of be at a school where the first cardiac pumps were designed and implemented. So it's always fun to sort of interact in that space. And I am still very much we're still very much early in terms of building up the community and the networking and everything. But one of the big reasons I'm here is just to highlight the fact that I'm very happy to be a community manager. If people are interested or work in any of the space regarding additive manufacturing and biomanufacturing, I'm more than happy to work with Jenny to sort of build up that network and formalize that network similar to all of the other spaces the previous speakers have already developed, because they've obviously put in an enormous amount of work, and I want to put in my 2 cents to keep this community growing. And there's obviously a couple of different things that we can do. I've taken it upon myself to work with a couple of physicians and surgeons and to educate them on 3D printing aims and goals. And that's sort of where I am on the education side for right now. But obviously there's a lot of startup potential here. There's a lot of talent here. And even though people tend to move to places like New York, Chicago, or even to California, there is a solid modus to build a lot of stuff here. So however you feel would be most appropriate to interact moving forward, I'm more than happy to help. And even outside the area of Michigan, I'm also Mexican. I grew up in Mexico City, and I've very gradually also been helping Jenny connect with the burgeoning market and startups down there. So if there's anything that's needed on the Spanish language front, I'm more than happy to help out in that capacity too.
I totally want to visit Mexico City, so I definitely need your help someday soon.
I've been building things to do, so that's always nice.
That's awesome.
About the diversity and the tech angle, which is also really good.
And Rafa, you're doing MD PhD, and you have a PhD thesis or project now, right? So you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I've been in this program for a couple of years. I've made it through the first half of my medical training. Still have not stepped foot in a hospital formally, so I can't talk a little bit about that. But I work with modular tissue design and use of bioprinting applications to build modular scaffolds. My project is focused on building tangible and replicable liver models, but I also know that there's some other people in our lab who work with bone and cartilage grafts. So I'm kind of involved in that capacity. I mainly got tapped because of my bioprinting and material science background.
Awesome. Yeah, I am so proud of you guys. Everybody is so smart and driven and have rich knowledge about their ecosystem locally. So I'm really lucky to be with you. So I think we're approaching the end of the presentation time. I think I'm going to end this. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk to the expo area and then clicking some of the booth. I believe you can see how many people are in each booth. I would advise against going to just one booth, which is my booth. I would say try to find people that you are interested in connecting, one-on-one or in a smaller group. But obviously, if you want to connect with me, I'm there. I'm already there. So I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.